You know, every single business, whether it's a tiny coffee shop or a massive tech company, is basically on a voyage into the unknown. They're all trying to navigate these tricky currents, hoping for a huge reward on the other side. So today, we're going to grab the map and compass to really understand that journey's constant companion, risk. It's time to tame the beast. And it just makes perfect sense, doesn't it? The whole idea of risk was borne out on the high seas. Sailors knew they could lose absolutely everything in a storm, but they also knew that a single successful trip could bring back an incredible fortune. And that trade-off, right, that danger versus reward, it's literally at the core of every single business decision that gets made today. So when we use the word risk, what are we really talking about? Well, in the business world, it boils down to this. It's the effect of uncertainty on your goals. Let's say you want to launch a new product. That's your objective. But you're uncertain about how many people will actually buy it. That uncertainty, that gap between your plan and the real world, that's exactly where risk lives. Now, it's really easy to think of business risk as just, a gamble, a roll of the dice. But it's so much more complicated than that. Risk is just an unavoidable part of the game. And here's the thing. The real goal isn't to avoid risk, because you can't. It's to get really, really good at understanding it. And you've got to understand that not all risks are created equal. You can pretty much split them into two main buckets. First, you have speculative risk. This is the kind you take on purpose. Think about investing in a new stock. Sure, you might lose your money, but you could also win big. Then you have pure risk, which has absolutely zero upside. A factory fire, a data breach. There's no win scenario there. It's all just damage control. Okay, so when you start listing out all the things that could go wrong, it can get, well, pretty overwhelming, right? That's why it helps to think of it like a zoo, just filled with all these different species of threats. And to manage them, you first have to know how to spot them in the wild. So let's walk through the main enclosures in our risk zoo. Strategic risks. These are the big ones, coming right from the top, like a flawed business plan that points the entire company in the wrong direction. Operational risks, that's the day-to-day stuff that can go wrong. A machine breaks, a system fails. Financial risks are all tied to the flow of money. And then you've got reputational risks, which honestly can be the scariest of all, where a single bad tweet can undo years of hard work. All right, so we've seen the beasts. Kind of intimidating, right? But here's the good news. There is a proven 5-step process for teaming them. This isn't about crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. It's about having a real map to navigate all that uncertainty. So here it is. This is the map. First up, you gotta identify what could possibly go wrong. Next, you analyze each of those threats. How likely is it to happen and how bad would it be if it did? From there, you evaluate and rank them because, hey, you can't fix everything at once. Step 4 is where you treat the risk. Do you try to avoid it, reduce its impact, transfer it to someone else, or just accept it? But honestly, the real secret sauce is step 5. You have to constantly monitor everything. This isn't a one-and-done deal, it's a loop, because the world is always changing. And look, this whole 5-step thing, it's not just some theory from a stuffy textbook. It's a really practical toolkit that businesses use every single day. Let's see what this actually looks like out in the real world. Okay, but first, we gotta clear something up. It's a really important distinction. People throw the words risk and uncertainty around like they're the same thing, but they're not. Risk is quantifiable. It's when you know the odds, like rolling a dice. Uncertainty is when you don't even know what all the possible outcomes are. And this is so key. Good companies manage risk, but the great ones are masters at navigating uncertainty. All right, let's make this real. Walk into pretty much any store, and you will see this process in action. The CCTV cameras they have up, they don't completely eliminate the risk of theft, but they are a very clear attempt to reduce it. That is a perfect, everyday example of step 4, treating the risk for a common operational threat. Or think about this. How does a bank decide if they're going to give you a loan? They use a credit score, right? What they're doing is analyzing tons of data to figure out the probability, the financial risk that someone might not pay them back. That whole process, it's step 2, analyze, in its purest form. And finally, here's one we all know, The potential cost of a serious medical issue is massive. It's a pure risk. So, when you buy health insurance, what you're really doing is paying another company to carry that financial risk for you. You are literally transferring the risk. That's another option from step 4, and it's the entire foundation of the insurance industry.
Okay, so let's boil this all down. What are the key things to walk away with? First, just remember that risk is that space between your goals and an uncertain world. Second, know that these risks are super diverse. They can be anything from a bad strategy to a server crashing. But the most important thing is that there's a process to manage them. Identify, analyze, evaluate, treat, and monitor. At the end of the day, it's all about mastering that balance between the threats and the rewards.
And that leaves us with one last, kind of provocative question to chew on. We've spent all this time talking about how to spot and tame risks. But in a world that moves this fast, is it possible that the single greatest danger, the one huge strategic risk that outweighs all the others, is just playing it too safe and not taking any risk at all? Something to think about.